And we are live. Welcome, everyone, to our book study group for Monday, the 18th of July, 2022. I am John Lavenia, accompanied by some of my favorite people in the universe, Lindsay, Dollar, England, Catherine, Martin, Missy, and Bob, the birthday boy, Meyer. Welcome, birthday boy. And you guys with your false backgrounds are fading in and out. You like disappear and reappear and all that kind of stuff. Oh, here comes Janet too. That's really cool. And here comes Daisy. That's really cool. Hey, tonight we're starting a new book. Hopefully you've been reading it. Dale Carnegie's How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And I want to acknowledge everyone who, this book came up 3 times in a week when we were debating what our next book was going to be. But I want to thank everyone who had it on their mind, including and especially the birthday boy, Bob. Thank you, Bob, for recommending this book. Wow, I'm enjoying it. I've been through the introduction and 5 chapters, as hopefully we all have, because I mentioned we're going to do the first 2 sections. We're going to see if we can knock this book out in 5 weeks. We'll see. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and then I'd like to just make sure we know what we're covering, and then we will open it up to the peanut gallery for commentary. Here we go. All right. So I did get the Kindle version of this. I did not currently have this book. I've never read it before. So I had to actually go and buy it. And I thought what was interesting was they couldn't spell Dale on the cover. It's interesting. Anyway, so moving on, I enjoyed the Lowell Thomas dedication. This book is dedicated to a man who doesn't need to read it. All right. So we got 9 suggestions on how to get the most out of this book. And then we get into part 1, fundamental facts you should know about worry. Chapter 1, live in day-tight compartments. I think maybe it was Bob who mentioned that phrase before. I'd never heard that before. Number 2, a magic formula for solving worry situations. Boy, we're making some big promises here, Dale. This is great. Number 3, what worry may do to you. So there's the ramifications. Part 2, basic techniques in analyzing worry. Chapter 4, how to analyze and solve worry problems. Really loved that chapter. And number 5, how to eliminate 50% of your business worries. And that's where we'll end off for tonight. So the first 17% or so of this Kindle document. Who's got some thoughts on these first 5 chapters? Please come on down.
Well, since I seem to have been one of the prime movers, I guess I'll kick things off.
There you go.
This to me is kind of a natural outgrowth of all the content we had been doing in the past with Neville Goddard and Wallace Wattles, James Allen. Dale Carnegie is certainly preaching exactly the same gospel. Okay. I think there's a different focus, though. This is more of a practical outgrowth of all of the principles of Wattles and Allen and Goddard, et cetera. I think Carnegie and Goddard were contemporaries, actually. Yes. So I don't know if, they read each other or knew each other, but I like it because it's very practical, and particularly for people such as Missy and me who are fairly new to the entrepreneurial game. Worry is a very big thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. You are launching your skiff into uncharted waters, and what may come of it, only God knows. And you have to sort of trust your own instincts, but having a guidebook, and as we're going to discuss tonight, hopefully how to analyze, I do have just one final thing to say, and that is in my previous education, I was taught one of the first things you should consider in whether or not to deal with a problem is the thing a problem? Or is it simply an outgrowth of your imagination? Nothing is 100% an outgrowth, but obviously we build things up into bigger things than typically they are. This is, I think, going to be very helpful to everybody. I'm hoping that everyone who's read it and will be reading it will see, as I thought, that there are a lot of principles that we discussed in previous books that are reiterated here.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Yes, I do like his pragmatic approach. Like, you need to actually do this. In fact, right in the introduction, 9 suggestions on how to get the most out of this book, he talks about, don't just have like a glib or cursory approach to this, right? You got to apply it. You need to have some integrity here, right? Unless you just want entertainment, and I guess let's get entertained. But for the most part, this is something where he's instructing us to put to use with lots of anecdotes, right? Here's the story of this guy, and that's all very nice. Proof, if you will. Here's proofs. Here's purported successes by applying the principles. But this book is for use, and I really do appreciate that. Of course, this came out in 1948, so it was after his How to Win Friends and Influence People, which it was okay, I suppose. Just in my opinion, this one, I'm really digging this. So obviously, Carnegie also had evolved, and I liked his directness in some of the things that, in fact, I highlighted a couple of things which in modern times seem kind of mild the way he wrote it, but I think back in 1948, it was probably a smack in the face to the reader. One of the other contemporaries of this genre from that contemporary time era was Dorothea Brande, who was very direct, especially as a woman in the 1930s. Right, she was a very direct writer. So I really appreciate that about this book. Any other opening comments on these first 5 chapters? I don't see any other hot mics. When Bob was talking, he did remind me of something Samuel Clemens, also known as Mark Twain, said. He said, I've had thousands of problems in my life, most of which never actually occurred. So the idea of projecting, imagined disasters into the future, which doesn't exist yet, right? Who doesn't do that? Who hasn't done that? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in, and let me share my screen. Here we go. Ready for me. All right, great. So and each section, each part ends with a nutshell, which was kind of cool. But anyway, 9 suggestions on how to get the most out of this book. I kind of already covered this. Actually do it. So in a nutshell, develop a deep driving desire to master the principles of conquering worry. In fact, he said, if you actually do that one, you don't need the other 8. Okay, but you should have some intention behind your study. Here, read each chapter twice before going on to the next one. Admittedly, I have not followed that instruction. As you read, stop frequently to ask yourself how you can apply each suggestion. Okay, so please make this real. This isn't academia here. Number 4, underscore each important idea. I did. 5, review this book each month. Well, it's my first time through, so I'll let you know what happens in August. Apply these principles at every opportunity. Use this volume as a working handbook to help you solve your daily problems. We talk a lot in our group about reminders. I've often admitted I need reminders all the time. It's easy to forget this stuff. Okay. 7, make a lively game of your learning by offering some friend. He said your wife, and in the actual text, but here in a nutshell, offering some friend a shilling every time he catches you violating one of these principles. I think he said your wife will run you broke. Offer your wife a shilling every time she catches you violating one of the principles advocated in the book. She will break you. There you go. Check up each week on the progress you're making. He mentioned here to go ahead in the book and read about what Ben Franklin and H.P. Howell did, right? So I don't know if you guys did that, page 193 to 4. It's actually in this book. It's page 130, at least based on the size of the font that I'm using in my Kindle application. So, and then finally, keep a diary in the back of this book showing how and when you have applied these principles. So journaling. As we get into the chapters here, he's going to talk about getting the facts, right? So actually writing down stuff, he talks about that too. Okay, so making an objective view, something that's objectively viewable, gives a much more accurate perspective when it comes to decision making. So anyway, part 1, fundamental facts you should know about worry. And here's that phrase, day tight compartment. So a couple of things I highlighted out of this chapter I thought was really cool. So our main business is not to see what lies dimly at a distance, but to do what lies clearly at hand. Waddles, okay, a few years prior, like 50 years prior, talked about, do your work of this day, right? Do all that can be done this day. Do the best work you can with purpose and faith, and essentially give no thought or anxiety for tomorrow. There'll be time tomorrow to do tomorrow's work, right? So a lot of times, obviously, people drag yesterday into today, hoping to create a better tomorrow. Doesn't work out, right? It says also here, what then was the secret of his success? He's talking about this successful person. He stated that it was owing to what he called living in day-tight compartments. Here's the guy who became the great doctor. Okay, rather than worry, he did the best work he could today and made breakthroughs. Okay, the load of tomorrow added to that of yesterday, carried today, makes the strongest falter. Okay, so no matter how much John or Missy or Linda think that we're superheroes, here is your kryptonite. There it is. Shut off the future as tightly as the past. The future is today. There is no tomorrow. I remember seeing, it was one of the Rocky movies, 2 or 3 or 500 or whichever one it was, where the Apollo Creed character was attempting to train and rehabilitate the broken Rocky, right? His manager has died. And, then at one point they're running on the beach. I don't know if anyone can recall this sequence from the movie. They're running on the beach, and, the Rocky character, Sylvester Stallone, just winds up gazing out into the ocean, just stops. And he's being admonished by his friend, Apollo Creed, previously his opponent in the ring, okay, but now his friend who's attempting to rehabilitate him so he can regain the title. And he's yelling at him, there is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. It stuck with me for some reason. And there it is, the exact quote. There is no tomorrow. So here, where he's talking about our daily bread, this prayer teaches us to ask for today's bread only. Today's bread is the only kind of bread you could possibly eat. Now, I also look at that, okay, as it relates to the work of today. So today's exchange, right? So here I am making an effort the only time I can make an effort, which is the same time, which is the only time I could eat the bread. Now, so when would now be a good time to focus your attention, right? Now, by all means, take thought for tomorrow or tomorrow, right? They said it both ways here. They're quoting scripture again. Yes, careful thought and planning and preparation, but have no anxiety. So, and Bob, you're more of a Bible scholar, where he says, take no thought for tomorrow. Well, the translation or the interpretation of that is have no anxiety for the tomorrow. But certainly, postulate, the future, have purpose, have a vision, right? Solomon, before Jesus, said, where there is no vision, the people perish. So yeah, take thought. Just don't get all wacky. All right. So whether in war or peace, the chief difference, I love this, the chief difference between good thinking and bad thinking is this. Good thinking deals with causes and effects and leads to logical, constructive planning. Bad thinking frequently leads to tension and nervous breakdowns. And he's going to go more into this in subsequent chapters. But just think about that. I mean, that paragraph right there, that sentence, I think gives us our barometer. Like, well, what is the fruit of this thinking? That I get to be all emotionally distraught, or that I get to produce something, cause and effect? Brilliant stuff. And he goes through some more anecdotes. I really enjoyed this. You and I are standing at this very second at the meeting place of two eternities, the vast past that has endured forever, and the future that is plunging on to the last syllable of recorded time we can't possibly live in either of those eternities. No, not even for one split second. But by trying to do so, we can wreck both our bodies and our minds. Wow, wow, wow. Strong words. I enjoyed this quote as well. Every day is a new life to a wise man. So kind of like we talked about several times here, hitting that reset button, letting the dead bury the dead, and getting focused in present time. finally, my doctor told me that I had only 2 more weeks to live. This was the story of the guy who was supposedly terminal, and he was so worried and his body was failing. I was shocked. I drew up my will and then lay back in bed to await my end. No use now to struggle or worry. Aha, I gave up, relaxed, and went to sleep. The guy couldn't sleep. I hadn't slept 2 hours in succession for weeks, but now with my earthly problems drawing to an end, which was false, he lived on, I slept like a baby. So here is the psychosomatic, very demonstrable result of worry. Okay, here's a guy who was strangely ill, who couldn't sleep. And as soon as he had reconciled, which we're going to get into, the magic formula on how to conquer worry, so as soon as he had reconciled that, suddenly his body's working again. Isn't that friggin' amazing? Here's the reminder idea again. John Ruskin had on his desk a simple piece of stone on which was carved one word: today. I think I'm going to go get a stone. Actually, I live in Florida now, so it's all sand. But if I was still in Arizona, I would very easily find a stone and I could start carving upon it. So any thoughts on that before we get into chapter 2? We're moving through these chapters pretty quickly.
Well, John?
Yes.
So the thing is, I'm looking for my notes. So what's at hand, and do your best work that you can today. So this weekend, I gave a presentation, and I taught myself Keynote, which is the Mac version of PowerPoint. I kind of taught myself, enough to create a slideshow, enough to help with the presentation. And so running through my head is imperfect and done better than not done.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing here of do the best work you can today. So no apology. Just say, this is a little rough, you guys. It's the first time I've done this, but here we go. Not a big apology to it, right? The best I could do today. And I've been putting off this presentation for months because they've been wanting me to do it. So there's a new me happening inside, and I just did it. I have things to say. I know things that people there don't know. So bring them some new information to help up. So that those both go for me in the same place. The best you can today. Imperfect and done. I'm a perfectionist. This is not easy for me, but I did it. Mm-hmm. and got some, thank you, Missy, and got some, and Linda, it worked. And the meeting that's supposed to go on for an hour, we had to stop at 20 after the next hour. I just had so much to give them. And I now have people interested in taking my fall class, or I pre-announced right. that I am working on a course for iconographers about lettering, and you don't have to live in California to take it. You can live anywhere and take the class. So I just kind of pre-did this, right? But on that strength, doing the best I could then. So it's saying the same thing as we said to before. And yet today's bread, I can't eat tomorrow's bread. It's not been baked yet. Yesterday's is stale. I need to do what I can today. So I really like that. And also when you carefully plan for tomorrow. So my husband would say, like, okay, so we're going to go out and drive the desert. Now you lived, but we have the Mojave Desert and things like that. Cars break down, things happen. Well, I prepare the best I can. I have enough water. I have blankets in case we get caught and it gets cold. And we, all the preparations I can think of. And now we have internet to read, whatever, about things to do. But once I have prepared the very best that I know how, then I relax and enjoy the trip, because I've done my best. I'm not going to worry every minute of being gone about what I've prepared. And that's what he's saying. Careful preparation for tomorrow, takes away the anxiety. So I totally agree with all that. Yeah, absolutely.
Congratulations, Janet, on that done. That's a done right there. And you got so much content out of it. They had to cut you off. They had to pull you off the stage. That is great. And look, your next keynote presentation will be even more aesthetic. Okay, that's nice.
It'll be better. Well, I actually hadn't. I thought I was all done. I went to put it into my Zoom thing, and where was it? I had taken several hours to build it. Now I had half an hour, and then I had a few false starts. So now I had 20 minutes. I still wasn't presentable. And so I went in there. It had a better background because I figured out how to do that. Maybe a few fewer slides, but it's like one thing that I've been thinking about for long years and years. I began to conquer it. I don't know everything, but I began to conquer it enough to give that show, enough to say, I'm going to be doing some stuff. I learned what people are interested in, what they know. It was a really great learning process for me. And I relaxed in a way that maybe I haven't before. So
nice.
Yeah, I agree with all of this. Yeah.
Very good. Very good, Janet. Congratulations again. Bob, Missy.
And a lot of great stuff and greater stuff is yet to come, but I want to say this because I'm afraid I'm going to forget it. And that is, someone once told me that worry is the interest that you prepay on the trouble that you borrow.
Nice saying. Good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is going to be, I think, reinforced throughout the book. Janet, great story, and of course, great lesson. You prepare as best you can for what you can foresee, and then you just have to do it and let the chips fall where they may. So,
amen. Very good. Thank you, Bob. All right, let's go into chapter 2, the magic formula. So here we go. So he talked about some anecdotes here, but here's the magic formula. Step 1, I analyzed the situation fearlessly and honestly and figured out what was the worst that could possibly happen as a result of this failure. So what's the worst case scenario? Confront that. Step 2, after figuring out what was the worst that could possibly happen, I reconciled myself to accepting it if necessary. Okay, so if that's the worst, right? Nobody lost an arm, right? Okay, there you go, right? And then step 3, from that time on, I calmly devoted my time and energy to trying to improve upon the worst, which I had already accepted mentally. So now that we've reconciled this, well, now what can we do about it? Putting ourselves back into the position of cause, right? So rather than worry about, oh, what about this? What about that? Okay, great. Let's say all that happens. What can I do about it to start correcting it in advance? And then we get to make better decisions, right? Because now we're considering facts. And then one of the worst features about worrying is that it destroys our ability to concentrate. So this whole cycle of all these considerations without actual facts and without decisions, we just make ourselves worse. Kind of like what Bob was just talking about with that saying. Now, true peace of mind, this was a Chinese philosopher, comes from accepting the worst. Psychologically, I think it means a release of energy. Yes. And this is, and he even got excited about it. That's it, exactly. Psychologically, it means a new release of energy. When we have accepted the worst, we have nothing more to lose. And that automatically means we have everything to gain. So I have the expenditure of energy going into all my considerations and what ifs and maybes. And as soon as I reconcile that, I get my energy back. Interesting that this was a Chinese philosopher, because I have I read about like this one of the Buddhist sects that talk about embracing the dragon. Right. So the way to defeat the dragon is to embrace the dragon. So this is what this is. This is embracing the dragon. And then what? And now you get your energy back. The dragon's a gecko, whatever. I'm cause. Oh, beautiful stuff. Bob, did you want to jump in on that?
John, does that remind you, accepting the worst? There was an author we read sometime back. He was in a terrible accident. he was paralyzed in his bed, and he chose to accept that. And the doctors were telling his father, your son has had a breakdown. You're gonna have to convince him that, and they're like, no, you have to rebuild your life. And when he accepted it, that's when he gained his energy back. And do you remember this? I can't think of it. It wasn't Atomic Habits. It was something else. And when he did that, that is what gave him the energy, because he accepted that. He wasn't living in that constant state of anxiety. He released that thing, because it's such a heavy, ugly, ugh.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's maybe at one point he read this book in his life where it just was common sense to him at the time, but they were literally telling him in the hospital he was crazy. You can't think this way. And it just reminded me of that. And it was very, it's a stark reminder and what he became after that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, I'm sure it's not news to anybody here that this truth existed before the book existed, right? So people have applied this stuff. In fact, there was a quote that he gave in here that seemed modern, but it was thousands of years old, right? So people have worried for as long as there was, something to worry about, I suppose. Maybe even before there was something to worry about. We just worry anyway. Right? It's the consistent tendency to forget how powerful we are and how causative we are. So wrapping up, that was chapter 2. So there's the secret formula. Okay, the magic formula, not secret. Ask yourself, what is the worst that could possibly happen? Prepare to accept it if you have to, then calmly proceed to improve on the worst. Right? Get back to the position of cause. Any other thoughts on this chapter? Just come on out, because I can't see everybody's hands because I am doing my screen share thing. Let's move on to chapter 3. We're going to move pretty quick through this so we can get through this book in 5 weeks. What worry may do to you. So just in case you're vague on some of the physical, not to mention, emotional ramifications of this, here you go. Okay, so I thought this was fun. New York City, smallpox, frightened people stood in lines for hours at a time to be vaccinated. Does that sound familiar? Anybody? The cause of all this excitement? 8 people in New York City had smallpox and 2 had died. 2 deaths out of a population of almost 8 million. There's that. Right. Okay, so fear is a tool that is often used by people who would like for you to live in fear. Just keep that in mind. Now, he's been in New York for over 37 years, and no one has ever yet rung my doorbell to warn me against the emotional sickness of worry, an illness that during the last 37 years has caused 10,000 times more damage than smallpox. Who was it said that said FDR, actually? We have nothing to fear but fear itself. Why don't we remember stuff like that? We meaning society. Why don't we remember stuff like that? I mean, if this is such a dis-ease, and it's he talks about suicides in here and everything and nervous breakdowns, right? Then why don't we place that at the top of the list of ailments? So you see, it says here, you don't get stomach ulcers from what you eat. You get ulcers from what is eating you, which is something apparently you could die from, right? So what shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his health? I really liked how he worded this. This is one of those very direct parts here. Even if he owned the whole world, he could sleep only in one bed at a time and eat only 3 meals a day. Even a ditch digger can do that and probably sleep more soundly and enjoy his food more than the high-powered executive. Frankly, I would rather be a sharecropper down in Alabama, Lindsay, with a banjo on my knee than wreck my health at 45 by trying to run a railroad or cigarette company. A banjo on my knee. So yeah, he's definitely throwing it around. All right. And this is from a guy who's living in New York City. So I will tell you, and I grew up in the 70s, not the 40s. Okay. But growing up in New Jersey, And that's all I knew. It was New Jersey, New York City, right? That whole scene. And the picture in my mind of Alabama was exactly that, there, and like, dueling banjos and stuff. And, the joke, how do you know that, the toothbrush was invented in Alabama? Because if it was invented somewhere else, it would be called the teeth brush, right? So I'm going to have to let Lindsay come out here and defend herself. Now, I've since been disabused of these false, ideas of Alabama. I drove through Mobile, right? This is a huge friggin' metropolis. Yeah. So you guys got stuff going on there too. Anyway, it says here, Plato said that the greatest mistake physicians can make is that they attempt to cure the body without attempting to cure the mind. It says here, it took medical science 2,300 years to recognize that. So, and nowadays, we do have a more holistic approach. Well, sometimes we do a more holistic approach to health, body, mind, spirit, and all that. And then he gives lots of anecdotes and little tips, but it says here, heart disease, the #1 killer in America today. I believe that's still true. During the Second World War, almost 1/3 men were killed in combat. But during that same period, heart disease killed 2 million civilians, and 1 million of those casualties were caused by the kind of heart disease that is brought on by worry and high tension living. Now, I don't know how they quantify that. Yes, heart disease is one of the chief reasons why Dr. Alexis Carrel said businessmen who do not know how to fight worry die young. Now, he quotes this exact quote like 4 times in the chapter. He even concludes with it. Worry is like the constant drip, drip, drip of water, like Chinese torture. And the constant drip, drip, drip of worry often drives men to insanity and suicide. So this is self-torture here, guys. That's what this is. He's making a case on why you should really take this book seriously. Now, as Thoreau said in his immortal book, Walden, and I love this quote, I've quoted it before, and I forgot who it was attributed to, but I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of man to elevate his life by a conscious endeavor. If one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live a life he has imagined, he will meet with success unexpected in common hours. Why did that part not get highlighted? I don't know. Now it is. Okay, great. So there's a promise, right? There's something you can bank on. Concluding, I would like to have the title of this chapter tattooed on the breast of every reader of this book. Businessmen who do not know how to fight worry die young. And then he gives us the summation of the first 3 chapters here. Who's got some thoughts on this? Come on down.
It's way too true. My mother was a worrier, and it didn't help her health. She died. She was only 82, and it was terrible. She would worry when there was nothing to worry about, almost, and it was hard to be the daughter who loved the mother who just couldn't relax and let go. She had a lot of demons somehow, and it was hard, and it was almost like if I followed her advice, I would just be always in my apartment with the door locked. Unlike today, which I'm always inside with it. but it's like, well, don't go out and do that. No, I have to live. I have to live around this, and so that was hard. And I'm reminded of the emperor who lived in the Forbidden Palace. And he had what was called was it a cricket floor or something? It chirped. So he had, if you're heading up a country, you have enemies. It doesn't matter what you. And so he would sleep in a different room every night, and the floor would creak if anybody walked on it. So he would be alerted that, that somebody was coming. I would rather be the sharecropper. And not have those kinds of worries. It's hard. Mm-hmm. But I think, we have limiting beliefs. We have things that we put in our minds as children for whatever reason. and logic doesn't fight those. You know, this is great for everybody who sees that, but for those who don't see it and don't live this way, you know, it's a hard thing. It's a very hard thing to because logic, like I said, logic doesn't cut it. So that's why people are not hearing the message. They can't.
Well, part 2 of the book, we're going to get into logic, right? So that's an antidote and a tool for analyzing worry, which is the second part of the book. But I hear you. You know, there's a difference between preparedness and paranoia, and a lot of people don't make that distinction. So great perspective. Thank you, Janet. Bob and Missy again. No need to raise hands tonight. Just come on down.
Excuse me, today, well, first of all, Janet, my mom too was big worry. Her whole family were like, it's as if there was the profession, you know, they just worried. If it was raining out, my mother, she would call, go in the closet, it's gonna thunder. She literally told us to go in the closet. So we were walking in the woods today. It was today by accident. And Lindsay, we were thinking about you the whole time. I said, Lindsay needs to be here. She would cut this shit. But the whole thing on my mind, I wrecked the whole thing because I was thinking the ticks, there's ticks everywhere. There's ticks. I know there's ticks. There's deer, there's ticks. And Bob's just, you know, walking in the woods. I'm like, where I know there's a tick. And then we had a downpour. And everything I saw was a tick. It was just dirt. But I was like, I can't even describe what state I was in. It was a state of such hyper awareness that, but the good thing is, and I think Linda and Lindsay will vouch for this, that I am, and Bob, that I am really working to break these old useless habits. It's fight or flight 24/7. That's what it's been for many, many years. And that has not served me well, because there ain't no saber tooth, you know? And yeah, I mean, ticks can do terrible things, but you know what? The more you think about it, then it's going to do it. And I know, I was thinking of you, Lindsay. I was like, Lindsay would just be walking in here, you know, running, going up the hill. So she wouldn't care if she got dirt on her. So I was trying to be like Lindsay. I failed, but I'm working on it. So, but this book is very helpful. And the more you read, the more you apply, the more you do. And my girls will force me to. Linda will say, Missy, cut that out, you know, so. But yeah, if that happens to you out there in YouTube land, don't worry, you can fix it and you can change it. Go skip to the end and see what Ben Franklin did. So anyway, that's my story for today.
Oh, great, Misty. But, you know, just because you think a tick is going to bite you doesn't make it happen, but it doesn't need to, because you've already defeated yourself.
That's right. That's right. The tick didn't even, why bother her? You know, she's already got it done.
Exactly. She didn't care.
Did you encounter an actual tick?
No.
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 All right.
No, I was like waiting for the Nazis to come. That's what I was like the whole time.
Did you by chance?
Birthday too.
Did you by chance, you know, apply bug repellent before walking through?
We went there by accident.
Just on a whim,
We didn't know we were going there.
Ah, all right.
You're the one who wanted to press forward into the woods.
Yes, because I was trying to ignore it, but I wasn't ignoring it because I was speaking it out every second. I know there's ticks in here, there's ticks everywhere. There's a sign about deer, shut the gate so the deer doesn't get in. If the deer's having the ticks, you know, I was just, so it's a thing I got to fix.
Okay.
It's your fix.
Well, when I first moved to Arizona back in the year 2000, I thought I saw scorpions everywhere, right? You know, and then I learned the black light trick, right? You go out at night with the ultraviolet light and they glow, like they light up like a yellowish green. And yeah, they can't hide from ultraviolet light. And then you just hit them with some taro and that's it for that scorpion. Anyway, moving on to part 2. Oh, wait, Lindsay with the banjo on her knee. Hi, Lindsay.
I don't know how to play a banjo. In Alabama, it does get a bad rap, but you know how many ticks I've got off of me before? They've never harmed me or anything. I mean, you just pull them out. So it's not, I guess it's what you allowed to worry, I think. I mean, I've known some people that have gotten some serious stuff from ticks, but I've never even seen it as an issue. So just, it's a tick, and just let it go. So I don't know. I don't know if that has something to do with it. And not saying my mindset's top notch, but, I also said at the beginning of COVID, I said, my body is not somewhere that COVID wants to come unless it wants to die here because it can't hurt me. And I've not gotten it yet. No shot, nothing. And not even ever worried about it. And so I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I don't worry about ticks or, stuff that, I don't know. There's other stuff I do catch myself worrying about, but worrying's never really helped anything for me. It just took me too long to figure that out,
Well,
or a long time.
It is based on a couple of things. I was bitten by a tick in 1979, and it may have caused a lot of this stuff. My other nephew got Rocky Mountain spotted fever. So I'm like, I can't do it. But I thought of you the whole time. And I actually said the thing. I'm an inhospitable environment for any ticks, but I'm working on it.
That's right.
There's definitely something to the mindset thing as it relates to psychosomatic, dramatizations, right? So we have, I was reading from one of the Hindu gurus, was talking about how the enlightened, could receive poison and just brush it off, but then the uninitiated or the warrior, I guess in this case, could drink nectar and perish. Right. So there's you had a nice walk in the woods.
No, she didn't.
Well, Bob had a nice walk in the woods.
No, he didn't. No one has.
I mean, for a lot of people, that would be like, hey, we're doing the woods thing. This is great. So anyway, thank you, Missy. Thank you. And thank you all for being so forthcoming. This is great. We're getting our laundry out here on the laundry line. And Lindsay, I'll tell you what, I've seen banjo players and their fingers are going a million miles an hour and the rest of their body, they don't move a muscle. They're like, and like, they're like a stone. I'm like, how the hell?
I don't know. Yeah. My husband has his granddad's banjo and his granddad could play it, but yeah, I was like, of course I don't know how to play one, but
well, I'm enamored with banjo playing, it's just, it's something. All right. Where were we? Part 2. This is fun. I'm having a fun conversation with you guys. So basic techniques in analyzing worry. So we're into the analysis part here. All right. So we've decided that worry doesn't profit you. It never did. In fact, it'll kill you. Okay, great. So how to analyze and solve worry problems. Chapter 4. All right. So what's the answer? Because it's what we just talked about before. It doesn't solve everything, right? So the answer is we must equip ourselves to deal with different kinds of worries by learning the 3 basic steps of problem analysis. So now we're getting into logic, right? 3 steps are: get the facts. Thank you. Analyze the facts. Arrive at a decision and then act on that decision. So this sounds terribly objective to me, not, subjective and, projecting, and I'm not sure, right? So without the facts, all we can do is stew around in confusion. And confusion is the chief cause of worry. So not knowing this, indecisiveness, confusion, worry, right? Anxiety, all that stuff. This is a conclusion that I came to prior to having read the book, which is that anything I'm indecisive about, I'm experiencing anxiety over. So like Janet was talking about the keynote thing, right? So that's a piece of technology. Oh, but what if I don't do it right? What if it sucks, right? So I don't know, whatever thoughts were going through her mind to have her procrastinate on that. But then once it was like deadline or, it's showtime, curtain's about to go up. Oh, well, now we get it done. Right. So interesting how necessity level can also be a part of this. Like we're analyzing now, the facts are it's showtime in 3 hours. So analyze the facts, right? Well, and do something about it. Almost sounds too simple. Okay. But if a man will devote his time to securing facts in an impartial, objective way, because worries usually evaporate in the light of knowledge. So worry is what? It's a lie. And lies die in the light of exposure, right? We could see right now in modern times, there are people in power who are worried about losing their power. So they practice, subterfuge and concealment, right? Because lies die in the light of exposure. Moving on, here are the things that he's suggesting here, that when trying to get the facts, I pretend that I'm collecting this information not for myself, but for some other person. So if I can be an objective third party, I'm just looking for the facts, for my friend. Okay, so this way he takes himself off the hook. Secondly, I sometimes pretend that I'm a lawyer preparing to argue the other side of the issue. So let's build the case, pro and con, again, very objectively. And then I write down both sides of the case and the other side of the case. And I generally find that the truth lies somewhere in between these two extremes. So we're analyzing facts now, and we're attempting to even take the position of the opponent in the argument. So this way we can get a broader survey of the facts of the entire scene, and we can make better decisions. Friggin' beautiful. Well done, Dale Carnegie. Great book, Bob. Thank you. So merely writing the facts on a piece of paper and stating our problem clearly goes a long way toward helping us reach a sensible decision. Again, this is an action in making something objective, right? That's what we're practicing here. We're saying, we're taking something from the ethers or just from our mind thoughts, and we're putting it on paper or on the text document, and we're now looking at it. It's not just in our mind anymore. It's out there in the world. We can see it. And this is why we can create things like a daily battle plan, which, like we talked about this morning in general session, right? Your daily mission, and having having purpose for each thing. And then if it's not purposeful enough, then it's not on the list, right? So we can make better decisions when we're able to look objectively at that. Here's 2 questions. What am I worrying about? What can I do about it? Back to cause. And you don't have to word the questions that way, okay? Question 2 could be, what part of it can I be responsible for? Anything that puts us back in the driver's seat. That's terribly therapeutic. Okay, now I used to try to answer those questions without writing them down, but I stopped that years ago. I found that writing down both the questions and the answers clarifies my thinking. And he gave an example. I don't know if it was in this chapter. Yes, here it is. Right. So here's the guy who was faced with possibly, being sent to the death camp. And he wrote down the possible solutions. And he was able to pick the right choice and probably saved his own life. It says here, experience has proved to me time after time the enormous value of arriving at a decision. It is the failure to arrive at a fixed purpose, the inability to stop going round and round in maddening circles that drives men to nervous breakdowns and living hells. I find that 50% of my worries vanish once I arrive at a clear, definite decision. And another 40% usually vanishes once I start to carry out that decision. So I banish about 90% of my worries by taking these 4 steps. Write down precisely what I'm worried about. Write down what I can do about it. Deciding what to do. Starting immediately to carry out that decision. Why is this method so superb? Because it is efficient, concrete, and goes directly to the heart of the problem. On top of all that, it is climaxed by the third and indispensable rule: do something about it. So he talked about the 2 things, and here's the third thing. And he enumerated them in 4 steps. Do something about it. Demonstrate causation. Not just sit there with theory. Do something about that. Now, we heard about the story of the guys who threw potatoes at the Japanese Zeros when they were bombing Pearl Harbor, right? You recall that story? And those people were not as PTSD'd as the other survivors, right? Because at least they did something. Effective physically? No. Okay. Emotionally? Yeah. Do something. William James. When once a decision is reached and execution is the order of the day, dismiss absolutely all responsibility and care about the outcome. Now he goes ahead and he's saying, you consider it a synonym for anxiety. So we're going to execute now. Janet executed her keynote presentation. Okay. And it's a done. It's a done. And done with goodwill and with purpose and everything. Okay. So she's been responsible throughout, but enough time, enough, of the worry, enough of the anxiety. And that's it for that chapter. Who's got some thoughts on this?
Cause and effect. Another one of our previous studies was Bob Proctor, and he was all big on cause and effect. Particularly you being the cause, but again, you're trying to assign what is the cause of the worry and what is the effect of the worry. And if you can find out how much of it is objective, that is by putting things on paper, looking at things objectively and logically, you're going to eliminate an awful lot of it. And you will come up with a game plan that here's what I can do, here's what's outside of my control. And this has become real hot on LinkedIn. I've seen a lot of people on my LinkedIn connections who are showing diagrams of like a Venn diagram, if you remember that from geometry, the circles that intersect, or some are inside of other circles. And the influence that you have is very, very small compared with the bigger picture. And if you can target what you can influence and what you can have an actual effect on and be satisfied with that, everything else tends to fall into place. You can only be responsible for what you can be responsible for. Great stuff.
Yeah.
I think the next chapter is even better because it takes it one step further. It's a real blockbuster. It lays a lot of haymakers on you. So
let's do it. Yes, Janet.
Some of us know that control is kind of a joke. We don't have any, but we have the illusion of control, and it makes us feel better. And even when I'm working with people in a healing capacity, someone is very ill, the family's around, and they feel powerless. You feel powerless. That's the worst place to be. Whatever it is, whether it's in business or whatever's going on, and you just feel like you have no ability to affect anything. That's horrid. But if you give people, so in this case, I say, if you hold the hand here and touch this and do something else, this will bring energy and et cetera, whatever it is. If we feel that we have some amount of power with the cause, then we feel better. Now, whether or not we do, we feel better. When we feel better, we're more effective. When we're more effective, we can not have to get mired in the worry, because we are feeling more full of being able to go forward and do something.
Exactly. Well, like you were saying in a previous chapter, once you've confronted, here's the worst case scenario, and I reconcile myself, if that's what it is, then that's what it is. All right, now what can I do about it? Keeps coming back to, what can I cause? How can I be responsible? What part of this can I have an effect with? It's brilliant. It's so basic, but he's attacking it from multiple angles. So we're going to get into this final chapter for tonight, and that is chapter 5, how to eliminate 50% of your business worries. Now, he comes right out and says, you probably don't believe me. That's a bold statement. Okay, so what if we eliminate just 10%? I mean, you read the chapter on, the ramifications of what worry does to you. So, it's still a good deal, right? Anyway, it says here, I made a new rule, a rule that everyone who wishes to present a problem to me must first prepare and submit a memorandum answering these 4 questions. So he's talking now about the guy who was like the VP or whatever at Simon & Schuster, and he would spend so much time in board meetings and trying to figure out problems, and nobody knew what the cause of the problem was and what should we do and what should we do. And he eliminated 75% of that by having people do a memo. Question 1, what is the problem? Right. So put it down on paper. All right. Number 2, what is the cause of the problem? All right. So we're digging in a little bit. All right. So here's the effect that you don't like. What caused it in your assessment? So we're analyzing still here. 3, what are all the possible solutions for the problem? Doesn't mean you're right. They're possibilities. Okay. Write them down. And then suggest one of them. What do you think we should do? Just based on the data that you have, we'll still take it up if we have to. Okay. But my associates rarely come to me now with their problems. So they do that and they never make it to the boardroom because the problem's solved. Even in those cases where consultation is necessary, the discussion takes about 1/3 of the time formally required because it proceeds along an orderly, logical path to a reasoned conclusion. That is so beautiful. So what a great time saver. Now, you don't have to be the vice president of a publishing company to be able to have that same sort of thing. In fact, I've done that in work environments where I had subordinates, and just that one piece, if you come to me with a problem, also come to me with an idea of a solution. And it saves so much time. That's it for part 2 of this book. So it's pretty brief. But get the facts, right? After carefully weighing all the facts, come to a decision. Once the decision is carefully reached, act and get busy on that decision. All right. So there's the 3 rules there. When you or any of your associates are tempted to worry about a problem, write it out and answer the following questions. And there they are. We just read them. And with that, we're going to jump into part 3 next week. I think all we're going to get through is part 3. There's 5 chapters just in part 3. So if we can get a little bit further, we will, but definitely get through part 3. Any thoughts on this final small chapter that we just read?
2 thoughts. One, I've experienced this. I've been in the corporate world most of my adult life, and I've had to endure interminable meetings. And then when some individual actually came prepared to a meeting, knowing what the agenda was, and said, this is what I think we should do, then that just cut through all of the extraneous material, and workable solutions were determined. The other thing is, it kind of reminded me of the anecdote that we just had in Bob Proctor's book with the broadcasting magnate who wanted to help a community that had been damaged, I think, by tornadoes. And, he decided that you're going to get everybody together, but anybody who said it can't be done because it was next. Okay. So he inverted the entire form of discussion rather than what can we not do to what can we do. And again, Dale Carnegie seems to be kind of out of place with Bob Proctor and Wallace Wattles and Neville Goddard and James Allen. But I think we're seeing a lot of continuity here. So whoever recommended this book, hats off to him.
Tell you what, they deserve a fruit basket or something.
Yeah, they're brilliant. Really brilliant.
Good times, my friends. Good stuff. All right. So tune in next time for more thrills and excitement. Part 3, 5 chapters. Let's dig in. And I'm really excited to see where this book goes. Thanks again, Bob, and everyone else who thought this would be a good read, because I am definitely enjoying